What do people need to stop romanticizing? Mental illnesses. It honestly comes to even weirder planes for those with real mental illnesses. Sometimes there are moments when they are considered to be faking their depression, bipolar and other diagnoses just to get sort of excuse for their behavior or even social benefits. I personally know people who feel guilty for their illnesses since faking them seems to become a trend. It's just wrong. As a schizophrenic, I can tell you this. I feel guilty for my illness and ashamed that I burden my family. Overworking. The people at my job seem to make it a contest of who sacrifices more for their job, who works the most overtime, who does things off the clock for work more, etc. It's bullcrap. I have a life and a family I want to prioritize. I started a new job, and at 5 PM I got up and left. The following day one of the co-workers approached me and told me we were expected to work on past finish time. I left at 5 PM bang on the dot every day. The other guys finished at 6 or 7 PM. One day the boss came through the office and asked where I was. Oh, McTaggart always finishes at 5 PM, and not a word was said. At my annual review they questioned my attitude and dedication to the company by not working late. I told them that I'd be happy to work late, but they'd need to adjust my contract to compensate. They told me I was being mercenary. This was just an office job, data entry or something. I had to explain to these guys that they were simply buying some of my free time, not buying my entire life. Any time I'm not being paid will be spent with my family/kids. About 6 months later I got promoted and put onto a salaried wage. I worked at a law firm where the lawyers are notorious for insane hours. I wasn't a lawyer, and I was pushing the elevator button at 4 PM every day. I'd have lawyers chasing after me to finalize documents, but after a few months they learned to get things to me early, or it would wait until the next day. I also refused a work phone with email access because screw that. After a couple months I was promoted. It was a nice office. I left after 9 months due to a new position I applied for, and they couldn't counter. But it was a great job. It would have been hell if I hadn't drawn those boundaries from the beginning. Depression. There's nothing romantic about not showering for 3 days and forgetting what it's like to be able to feel things. People treat depression as if it were a personality trait that makes them cool, quirky somehow. No, it's not a shiny trophy that you can show off around and be proud of. Mental health problems are real, and they can ruin lives. I've dealt with depression since I was at least 11, and growing up I felt like I never developed a personality. I'm just depressed all the time. I'm close to my 30s now, and I'm still trying to figure out who I am, because I pick up traits and hobbies all the time and drop them just as quickly. I have no sense of myself, and lack a personality beyond my depression, and there is nothing cute, quirky, or cool about it ESP, when guys tend to like that manic pixie dream girl thing. Being stressed and exhausted from work, or it turns into what we call pain Olympics. I'm exhausted. I worked 65 hours this week. OMG, that's nothing. I work 75, and I'm doing just fine. The worst. These people are so draining. I have a friend who has to top your pain, misery, or experience with his own. I complained about a horrible week once. His was worse, so I snapped and told him that I died and was convinced I was a ghost. Serial killers. This makes me really ashamed, but I fell down the Columbine rabbit hole when I was a young, troubled kid. Basically, it's a fandom for the Columbine shooters. I was struggling with my mental health, and the idea of killing the people who were putting me through so much crap gave me catharsis. I even wrote a letter to Kip Kinkle, a man who shot up his high school a year before the Columbine shooting. I really poured my heart out and explained everything I was going through. I didn't expect him to write back, but he did. He told me that he usually didn't write back to minors, but that he thought it was important to tell me that everything was going to get better someday. He explained how he got the treatment he needed for his mental health issues in prison, and even got a good education and a job within the prison, and was living a pretty good life there, despite serving a life sentence. He said that he really cared about me and wanted me to succeed in life, and asked me to reach out and get help. I was floored. No one had ever cared that much about me before. Needless to say, I left that fandom and got help, and I stopped romanticizing the idea of violence. When a literal school shooter tells you that crap isn't cool, you know that crap isn't cool. TBH, kinda nice to hear that he's gotten really decent help and is able to pass that on. Loyalty to the company, it's not a good thing. My husband worked for one particular company for nearly 20 years, and towards the end, they were really treating him like crap. He was actually scared to try and find another job because he was afraid his coworkers would hate him afterwards for leaving. It didn't help that for a period of about 2 years prior to his quitting, he'd done a crap ton of interviews for similar positions, only to find out they were going another way, or had just entered a hiring freeze or some other stupid response. My own thoughts on that were that he was too experienced and wanted too much money because of that experience. With one rejection after another, it broke him down, and he felt like he would never be able to find another job. My dad's MBA professor once said, love your job because you can do the same work anywhere, but don't love your company because you don't know when they will stop loving you. Amen to that. Honestly, company loyalty in this day and age is ridiculous. Sure, back when they fairly compensated you for your work, showed appreciation, and gave you good benefits, it made sense. Now, that is unheard of. I worked for a company that said they appreciated me, but underpaid me, constantly tried to cut my benefits, slyly tried to ask me to work without clocking in when I was hourly, and then furloughed me without any timeline of when I'd come back when the pandemic hit, even though I was single-handedly securing one of their biggest contracts. They then asked everyone they furloughed not to badmouth them on Glassdoor. Why in the hell should I be loyal to a company like that? Eating disorders. It's not beautiful and tragic, it's just a lot of gross crap. Like hoarding bags of chewed up food under your bed. Taking laxatives until you piss water out of your ass and you're so dehydrated you have to go to the hospital. Having denture/implants at 30 because your teeth rotted out. Walking around in public not realizing you have vomit in your hair, which by the way, is falling out by the fistful. I remember reading one horrifying story from a nurse who had a patient who was literally vomiting feces because her stool was so impacted due to constipation from her anorexia. Imagine vomiting your own crap. And that's not including risks like heart failure, life-threatening arrhythmias, brain atrophy, gastric rupture. There's nothing pretty about eating disorders. All that, and I'd like to add, I'm sick of all the books/movies being about cute white middle-class teenage girls. Eating disorders are an issue in any income class, age and gender. All this does is make people too ashamed to ask for therapy. It's shameful enough to be in your mid-30s and unable to feed yourself normally. We don't need to be told it's a silly girl problem. Yep, and it's always anorexia. And they're always thin to begin with. Stalking. In movies, if person A likes person B, it becomes okay to stalk them like crazy, showing up uninvited to profess their love. In reality, that's totally creepy and illegal. The issue is that people without experience doing these things in real life see the movies and emulate what they see. Absolutely. I had a stalker before lockdown here, and even me explicitly telling him I was afraid of him did nothing to stop him. Thankfully haven't seen him since COVID shut everything down. There is nothing romantic about being stopped in the street every day and seeing him drive past your house. Have you considered a restraining order? This seems really creepy. Being lonely. When I was young I thought that the lone wolf grizzled tough guy was everything it meant to be truly masculine and cool. So much so that I emulated that idea into adulthood, thinking people would see me as cool and manly. Thing is, I have no idea if anyone sees me that way because I have noon to hang out with. I isolated myself to this point that the most interaction I have with people face to face is well, at a drive-thru getting coffee or a meal. Let me tell you, it doesn't matter how many crunches or push-ups you can do, how good looking you are, or if you're charming as hell. Not unless you actually know people and make friends, and you can't do that if you're completely isolated. Frick being lonely. I really wish I could go out and just make friends like when I was young. How old are you now? I'm 50 and I've finally realized the real amount of effort it takes to make friends. Mostly I don't have that kind of energy anymore, and I guess most other people feel that way too. I'm much better now at being less hard on myself and not putting too many expectations on others. Most of the time it's enough to be pleasant to strangers. The Stoics are worth reading on this. Perhaps that's where you may get some comforting perspective. Good luck to you. Chronic illness or life-altering disease. People glamorize being sick in books and movies as a lesson in strength, positive outlook, and acceptance. Great values to learn, but it completely ignores the constant pain, isolation, and fear that sick people face daily. People pass around feel-good stories about inspiring people living their lives to the fullest, while terminally or forever ill, to make healthy and able-bodied people feel grateful for what they have. I, nor anyone else in this community that I know, don't want to be your positive inspiration. This life is hard, and we wouldn't choose it, so stop using it for stories/media that you get to be emotional over then walk away from. Yes. For crying out loud, yes. My ability to function whilst in constant, extreme pain and fatigue is not something to aspire to. It's exhausting. It's hard. It's lonely. No thank you. The trouble is, people don't want to hear the hard parts. The hard parts make people give you unsolicited medical advice. They make people think you're too depressing to be around. They make everyone think you're not feeling as bad as you say you are. It enrages me that, if you just keep quiet about it, you're put on some pedestal for their inspiration, and are somehow more worthy of respect than if you were honest about what it's like to live with a chronic illness. Not needing 7-8 hours of sleep. I'm amazed this is as far down as it is. So many people treat not sleeping as a badge of honor. In reality, the science is pretty clear in this, that getting 7 hours impairs your cognitive functioning and productivity. A lot of sleep-deprived people dispute that, but those in a sleep-deprived state aren't reliable evaluators of their own performance. If you actually can't function in the morning without coffee, you're probably not getting enough sleep. And yes, that's a lot of people. If you want to learn more about this, there's an excellent book titled Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, a world-leading neuroscientist and sleep expert. He's also done some podcasts, if that's more your interest. We read this for book club a few months ago, and I have asked my husband to read it too. He likes to give me guff for being in bed for 9 hours, because he usually stays up until after midnight, and is up before 8. But then he's constantly suffering all the ill effects the book mentions. It also proves that what I've always told him about different sleep cycles is true. His natural rhythm would probably be like 10-7, while mine is more like 12-9. I've wiggled mine forward a half hour, so I can be fully up and moving before I start at 9. But pre-COVID, I was up at 7 to be out the door before 8, and it was rough. Gambling, because gambling isn't about James Bond playing baccarat in Monte Carlo. It's about sad, addicted people desperately playing slot machines and losing money they don't have. I had a friend steal money from me to spend on scratching cards. He's convinced he's gonna win big one day. Meanwhile, he's unemployed and his electricity's been cut off, and he's spent weeks mooching off other people while saying unemployment benefits are for the weak. I'm on unemployment benefits. He just doesn't seem to understand that his obsession with winning big is destroying his life. I do tech support for a grocery chain. One day I was working at the courtesy counter, and I was shocked how long some people just hang out at the courtesy counter and play through scratch-off cards. Some people were there for hours, and they get super anxious when they have to wait to buy more tickets. I felt bad for them. The cashiers seemed to know them, and were used to them being there. Alcoholism. I'm thankful I never made it such a habit that it ever became a problem, but between the commercials urging you to buy drink and liquor, the movies and television that treat binges as always fun and always sex-filled, and the general cultural passivity with it, the fact I can drink with my parents no problem, but will likely never ever smoke weed with them, is just painfully misleading. I think of the people who truly struggle with alcoholism, and how much it must pain them to watch TV or even just be out anywhere it is served. Maybe someone with that sort of perspective here can correct or enlighten me, but it just seems like a very difficult world to recover from alcohol dependency. To clarify, I'm not anti-drinking. I used to drink on a weekly basis. whereas now it's on special occasions only. IDK. So many things about it just don't appeal to me anymore. The emotional and relational problems, the trauma-wasted behavior can bring, the wake-up headaches that make your head feel split in half, the vast amount of car accidents and fatalities inebriation causes, the numbing of your emotions, for better or worse, the amount of weight it makes you gain, the number of people who feel they cannot have fun without it. To me it's legitimately tragic just how much society encourages us, whether culturally or economically, to drink. I would argue cigarettes in the same vein. However, I think society has generally embraced the anti-cigarettes mantra much more in recent years, though it's still bad. I get mad when I see home decor items that have clever sayings about women drinking wine. As the mother of an alcoholic, it's not cute.